Okay, this video is going to teach you how to identify rhyme scheme within an English or a Shakespearean sonnet. We're going to start off with terms that I need you to know. So the first one is stanza. Poems tend to be grouped in stanzas, which are defined as identical units of groups of lines. Now, in Shakespearean sonnets, you typically find two types of stanzas. One being made up of two lines called a couplet. An example being double double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, which is an example very well known to everybody from one of Shakespeare's plays, Macbeth. And the other type of stanza that is important to take note of is the stanza made up of four lines, also called the quatrain. The example that I have here is from Shakespeare Sonnet 73, and it reads, "That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none, or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang." And of course, the other thing that'll help us out is to define rhyme scheme, which is what we're trying to find. Now, rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhymes used in a poem, typically based on the last word or word sound in every line. Now, the way to label rhyme schemes is by using letters, and you use a different letter whenever a new sound is introduced. So in rhyming couplets, it means that the word sounds found at the end of both lines rhyme with each other. So couplets are typically labeled A because they have the same word sound at the end, whereas quatrains in Shakespearean sonnets tend to not have that continuous pattern. Instead, a new word sound is introduced in the second line, creating that A-B pattern or rhyme scheme. The sonnet that we're going to be studying or taking a closer look at is Sonnet 18, and instead of listening to me recite this poem for you, I have the wonderful Mr. David Tennant reciting it instead. So take a listen and see if you can apply what we have learned about stanzas and rhyme scheme as he's reading this poem.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Now that we've listened to David Tennant recite Sonnet 18, let's figure out how we can break this up into stanzas. Now, I said that we were going to be working with two different kinds of stanzas, the quatrain, which is the four-line stanza, and the couplet, this two-line stanza. Now, if we look at this very carefully, I have separated these stanzas into four different colors, and as you can see, the first three separations, the orange, the red, and the yellow, are all made up of four lines. Now, what is it that we call stanzas made up of four lines? That's right, we call them quatrains. And as you can see, there are two lines left, and that makes up the rhyming couplet. Okay, so in total, that's 14 lines, 3 quatrains making up the first 12 lines, and the last 2 lines being the couplet. Okay, so those are your 4 stanzas that make up a Shakespearean sonnet. In order to find the rhyme scheme, what I did was I took out the rest of the line and only left you with the last 2 words, highlighting specifically the very last word in each line. Take a look at this pattern that the coloring has created. We're going to take a specific look at the first set, or the first quatrain. So the words that we have are day, temperate, may, and date. To figure out what a rhyme scheme is, you ask yourself, does this word rhyme with this word? So what we're going to ask ourselves is, does day rhyme with temperate? No, it does not. This is not the same sound. Because day does not rhyme with temperate, you skip to the next line. Does day rhyme with may? In fact, it does. So for this sound, we will label it A. And for temperate and date, although they're not an exact rhyme, they sound very similar. So you can connect them together and call this the B sound. Now, if you label it properly, the rhyme scheme for this specific quatrain will be A, B, A, B. Now remember, the letter changes whenever you introduce a new sound. Since this is A, B, A, B, if you take a look at the rest of the poem, the fifth line, or the first line of the second quatrain, introduces shines, which is a new sound, so that becomes C, and dimmed, another new sound, becomes D. And you'll see that the pattern follows until you get to the couplet at the end, in which C and the rhyme with each other, so that gets the G, G. So in total, the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. We figured out the rhyme scheme, we figured out what the stanzas are, so let's take a really quick recap. A Shakespearean sonnet typically consists of 4 stanzas, 3 quatrains, 1 couplet, that's the 12 lines that make up the 3 quatrains, and the last 2 making up the total 14 lines for a sonnet. Now the rhyme scheme, as we said, is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, where each new letter signals a different sound being introduced into the poem. Now quatrains use the similar pattern for rhyming, in which the first and the third lines rhyme and the second and the fourth rhyme with each other. But the couplet has its own rhyme, in which the first and second line rhyme with each other. Alright, thank you for watching. Please go to our site, lithelp2011.weebly.com, to find more videos, book reviews, games, and literary resources. Anything that you could need help with in your English class, you will find at our site. So thanks again for watching, and we hope to see you back on our site soon.